all the historic drilling now makes sense. We can see some faults that explain some disparity in where the mineralization sits, and has painted a very clear picture, most importantly, giving us the roadmap to go and drill Dumbwa for the very first time, which will now kick off in about 10 days.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Adrian O'Brien. He is the Vice President of Business Development for Midnight Sun Mining Corp. And Adrian, nice to see you again. How are you?
Good to see you, Steve. As always, doing great. Very busy, bouncing around to lots of conferences and super busy in the field right now. So it's a big time for us.
Absolutely. You've got a lot of things to talk about. You've had a couple of news releases recently, one of which is expansion drilling and others the IP survey. So let's start with the IP survey. That's obviously a very important one for the company.
It is. This is a critical step. Now, going back, of course, there is a very clear analog between Dumbwa, our flagship target, and Lumwana, which is Barrick's flagship copper asset, and it sits just 20 kilometers to the west of us. Of course, the fellow that unraveled that for Barrick after almost 20 years of work was a guy named Kevin Bonnell. He's a PhD geologist, and he happens to be our chief operating officer. And the key thing that he did in order to transform that asset from a 900 million ton tier 2 to a 1.62 billion ton tier 1 was something called a dipole-dipole IP survey. So this is a survey that allows you to see what the mineralization looks like at depth and correlates the surface expression with what sits at depth. And Kevin has guided our group towards doing the exact same thing on all of our targets. And we've now carried out 60% of Dumbwa, which is a 20-kilometer surface anomaly. It's a massive geochem anomaly. And we've now covered the southern 60% of it and announced the results. And what that showed us was basically 11.5 kilometers of mineralization that we are now going to go and drill. And we can see a clear picture that tells us what the surface mineralization means with correlation of what's at depth. All the historic drilling now makes sense. We can see some faults that explain some disparity in where the mineralization sits, and has painted a very clear picture, most importantly, giving us the roadmap to go and drill Dumbwa for the very first time, which will now kick off in about 10 days.
Yeah. And are you going to be doing a lot of like trying to step out, make it larger? What's sort of the plan that you're doing?
Well, if you look at it this way, I mean, that soil anomaly is 20 kilometers long, peaks out at 0.73% copper. So the average deposit in the area, the average mine, is 0.56% copper. So this is extremely high grade. It's very large, runs for probably a kilometer wide at surface, in case some areas wider, and 20 kilometers on strike. So really what we want to do is define the extents of whatever sulfide system is at depth in correlation with that geochem anomaly. And so, I mean, if you start to look at the geometry of something that runs for 11.5 kilometers, which only being 60% of the entire anomaly, and if it runs for 200 or 300 meters at depth, it's rather extraordinary. So really all we want to do now is go back. We have some really impressive historic drill results. Let's go in and now drill this thing off top to bottom, and let's see how big it really is.
And this drilling will take you well into the fall. Is that right, Adrian?
This is going to be an ongoing thing. Yeah. So this is what we've been building up to all the way along. This is now a drill program that will kick off and run for the foreseeable future. We're just going to keep going and see how big we can make Dumbwa and what we really have.
Now, Adrian, that's not the only place that work is happening. You've got another program underway as well.
Yeah, we just kicked off drilling. This is RC drilling on our Kazhiba oxide target. Now, we carried out some drilling in November of last year, and all of this falls under the cooperative exploration plan we have with First Quantum. The goal being to deliver oxide copper to their SXEW circuit at the Kansanshi mine, which is key because, of course, they use that to neutralize acid coming out of their smelter. And at the same time, it is really the economic engine of the Kansanshi mine. So we have a lot of material at surface. We did some initial drilling last year. The results were spectacular. 21 meters of 10.5% copper, 26 meters of 5.5% at surface, zero strip ratio. Super, super impressive. And so we've done a really detailed assessment with our geological team over the past few months. And we've basically what we figured out is that the initial oxide blanket we were working on has really only been explored to about 40% of its potential. So beyond that initial oxide blanket that we've been working on, there are 3 or 4, maybe even 5 other oxide targets that we found which have the potential to be the same kind of thing. So we've done some more detailed partial ionic leach sampling, and we're going to prepare those for a follow-up drill program as well. So we are aggressively moving this oxide copper plan forward. And really, this is the unique aspect of Midnight Sun's plan, that we don't only have the exploration upside of these large sulfide targets like Dumbwa, we have the potential for near-term production and near-term potential cash flow that would come from that, which is very significant and totally sets us apart from the pack.
Yeah, very busy times ahead for sure, Adrian. We look forward to more conversations on it when the time is right. So appreciate your time today. Thanks for the update.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve, as always.
All right, Adrian O'Brien, Vice President of Business Development for Midnight Sun Mining Corp.